I can now qualify as running a good second to the people who are really honored today, all of you. I do begin, though, with an apology. In years to come, you graduates are going to be going to St. Vincent reunions and running into people who also went here at or around this time period. And it is oftentimes the case that you try to relate when you graduated to who your graduation speaker was. And there are going to be people who are going to say to you, well, you graduated sometime around 2000 something or another? Well, were you the ones that had the President of the United States? You say, no. Well, how about somebody really important, like the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers? No. The conductor of the Pittsburgh Symphony, head of a multinational corporation? No, you'll say. Who did you have? They'll ask. And you'll think for a moment, and you'll say, well, it was a fat guy. And he used to go here. Now, here's the thing. Later today, when you are all off at your parties, and you should be off at your parties later today, I promise that I'm going to go out and try to do something famous. This way, at least in retrospect, you'll be able to say, well, he wasn't much then, but, you know, the following year he rode home the winner in the Kentucky Derby. See, I really always wanted to be a jockey. But it was politics that kept me out of it, obviously. There really is, though, one and only one thing that does commend me to be a commencement speaker, because I do understand completely, and I promise you, I understand the cardinal rule that every commencement speaker should know, which is that no one in this auditorium came here today to hear me talk. So I will not delay the important part of this program for long. I do want to spend just a moment with those of you who we came to honor today. You are celebrating today a tremendous achievement, and in the course of today, you're going to receive a tremendous amount of congratulations, and you will be asked a question over and over again, and the question is simply, what's next? Now what are you going to do? Now, some of you will be able to talk about that answer in the short term, but if some of you are like I was and a number of my classmates, we actually sat here and believed that we had about the next 5 decades figured out. We had it all planned out. And I would suspect that some of you feel the same way. Some of you have already calendared the date of your first BMW. Or you know when the portfolio is going to become $5 million. And some of you, I think, have already checked airline flights to Stockholm, because once the Nobel Committee gets around to it, they will be inviting you to get a prize there. I kind of felt that way myself, and according to the schedule I had when I'm sitting where you are, I would be in my second term as president right now. Well, for those of you who feel that way, and I guess for all of you, I have news. You are probably not only going to need a plan B, you're going to need plans that run pretty deep into the old alphabet before it's all over. You like surprises, do you? The future has a whole bunch of them in store for you. One day, you will learn the wisdom of the observation of the great old Yankee catcher and manager Yogi Berra, who once said, "The future ain't what it used to be." That'll make more sense to you as time goes on. There is one thing, though, that is absolutely for sure. A constant that both your parents and your grandparents will tell you, because they know it so well. No matter what else you do in this life, no matter what mountains you climb or what mountains you fall off of, no matter if your name appears in lights on Broadway or if a Google search can't locate you, you will have an enormously profound effect on the generation that follows you, and particularly that portion of the generation you will have a hand in begatting, your children. Now, since that particular consequence of your life is a matter you can't shake, responsibility you can't pass over, and while none of you are anticipating it right now, I can tell you it will be here before you know it. You might want to spend a moment thinking about how you will prepare to have that impact on the generation that will follow you. To know how to do it right, you need to know what has come before you. Commencement speakers who give the phrase, "commencement is a beginning," need to be stoned, okay? And if you're ever at a commencement and somebody actually says that, throw something at them. I'm a criminal defense lawyer, and it's really not in violation of the law to do that. If you think this is all a beginning, look around this hall for a moment. Look at the generations that are present in this hall today. Commencement is just part of a cycle of life. And each one of the generations that came before you have both profoundly affected you and helped define the task that lies before you in shaping the lives of the children you will have. The generation that were my parents were tough old birds indeed. If a fight broke out, you want to get behind them. These were people who mined the coal and made the steel and did the paperwork for the wealthy few and raised large families without much of a social safety net. Their lives were tough and hard and simple. And for many of them, the worst part of their lives was that the education they wanted so much was not in the cards for them. My father, the day after he turned 16, had to quit school and go to work. My mother graduated valedictorian of her class from New Kensington High School in 1932. But at that time, there was no scholarship money for a girl from a poor Polish family, and she went to work as a legal secretary. How many great physicists and doctors and lawyers do you think spent their lives in coal mines and secretarial pools because there was just no education for them to pursue? And what effect do you think that had on those people? Do you think that their poverty made them forget how valuable education was? Do you think they wanted their children to stay within the walls that poverty had created around them? No, what they passed on to their children, to me, was a sense that education was non-negotiable. You got as much of it as you possibly could. It was the given in your life. That was the way it was supposed to be. And that was how they broke down the walls of the hard and simple life that had been theirs. But when it came my generation's turn, with our children, we realized that there were walls of a different kind around us. We were landlocked. Now, you may have the false impression that I'm a sophisticated guy. I can disabuse you of that, or you could ask Father Rene, and he can tell you that I'm not a sophisticated guy. He has affidavits on file. But the truth of the matter is that I never left the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania until my 8th grade class trip, one day back and forth to Washington, D.C. It was quite the whirlwind, as I recall. For me at that time, the city of Philadelphia might as well have been Kabul, for all I knew. But as my generation grew and grew older, we knew that not only did that have to change, that was going to change. Those old walls were crumbling. Knowledge was just too accessible. The world was just too interesting not to explore. And we wanted our children to touch the world we never knew. We bought them globes and computers, and we got excited at the idea that for them, study abroad meant more than going to school in Ohio. And then one day, this kid who never left Pennsylvania till he was in 8th grade found himself standing in a yard at Oxford University in England, watching his son walk into living quarters to begin his studies there. And as I looked around, I saw the rubble of all those old walls lying around me. Those old walls that locked people into a narrow geographic place and limited what they could learn will not be erected around your children. Your children, my goodness, they're going to be off in the far-flung corners of the world. They will be accessing knowledge in the deep morass of a cyberspace none of us can even fathom. Your challenge, you see, is a lot different than the generations that have come before you. And it's a lot more difficult in a lot of ways. The great challenge of my parents' generation was to help their children secure the education they could never have. The challenge of my generation was to help our children explore a world we never knew. The great challenge you face is to help your children find a way home. You see, life inside those old walls did have one thing to say for it. It forced us to make an effort to hope, to dream, and to have faith. And it rewarded us for that effort with a sense of not only who we were, but that in some important degree we mattered. That there were places we had never been to simply meant that we had to imagine them in our dreams and hope to live out those dreams someday. We never had to face the hard reality that maybe those places might turn out to be not so much different or better than where we were already. And in the face of questions we couldn't answer or the marvels we couldn't explain, we embraced a simple, deep faith that a kind and just God had given us a world of marvels and magic and wonder, a world in which we could feel in a very real way blessed just to be here, and where we could feel at home. And that's not the world we left for you, is it? The breaking down of those old walls is a trade-off, you see. One of my great heroes as a lawyer is Clarence Darrow, a famous old lawyer from Chicago in the early part of the 20th century. And Darrow once said, "I think progress is a man behind a cash register. When mankind comes up and says, 'We want to conquer the air,' the man says, 'Yes, you may do so, but the birds will lose their wonder, and the clouds will smell of gasoline.' Once your children visit all the places their grandparents used to just dream about, and once it occurs to them that the things that my generation marveled at and embraced as matters of simple faith are things that they learn in the 6th grade science class, they may see the world and their place in it very, very differently. They may lose the great art of dreaming and hoping. They may come dangerously close to equating faith with ignorance. They may find that while they know so much, they have so little sense of who they are and less confidence that they matter in the grand scheme of things. They may find themselves in a world that Martin Heidegger described as a time between the gods which have fled and the gods which are not yet. They may lose the sense that they're blessed just to be here. They may lose that wonderful sense of being home, and you can't let that happen to them. You need to help your children find meaning. You need to help them build a sense of home they can carry with them wherever in the world they may be, or however far out into the universe they will venture. And if you haven't figured it out already, you need it for yourself too. But you're real lucky because you've learned how to do that right here. The tools you have are the tools that are all around you, the tools that have always been here, and the tools that St. Vincent has tried to give you in the time of your passage here. They are tools that you have to show your children in the way you live your life. Take whatever job you want. Pursue whatever career it is within you. But for your sake and that of your children, show them that in its most important dimension, your life is a genuine search for poetry, a noble effort in the pursuit of justice, and a sincere journey to God. Searching for poetry is not making stupid or silly rhymes. It is simply celebrating the idea that we all yearn to wonder, a yearning that neither the pervasive cynicism in the world nor the seemingly relentless demands of reason can ever fully suppress. Searching for poetry is simply showing your children that you understand that the world is a marvelous tapestry in which the revelations of science and the ordering power of mathematics are happily weaved together with the poetry of the earth that John Keats said is never dead. Take them to the Museum of Science by all means, but every so often walk them through an art gallery and show them the paintings that always moved you. Celebrate their awards from math summer camp, but share with them the sublime joy of browsing in the poetry section of an old bookstore on a rainy Sunday afternoon. Buy them whatever the fanciest version of an iPod is at the time they need it. But at some point, engage them in a discussion about what it was that led Mozart to hear what he composed before he put it on paper and before the orchestra played it out loud. No matter what career you pursue in this life, let your children see you as a poet. But teach them that the life of a true poet is not one of indifference or mere passive reflection. The true poet has a fire in the blood that commands them to undertake a noble effort in the pursuit of justice. Take time every so often to set something right. No one expects you to stop genocide single-handedly or to right all wrongs. But let your children every so often see you fight a fight against an injustice. Risk something of yourself to right a wrong that has been done to somebody who needs a champion. And fight without fear of failing. Indeed, if you fail while in the pursuit of justice, fail gloriously. Your children will love you for failing for the right reasons. But most importantly, they will learn that your passion to do justice reflects the last piece of the legacy you wish to give them, the final part of the inheritance that they need to find their way home. You will show them that regardless of what direction your life may take, in that gloriously uncharted land called the future, the journey that is most important to you is the journey you take to God. However you may conceive the image of God and however it is you seek to find God, let your children know that in trying to walk within His presence and His grace, they will never be far from home. The journey to God does not mean teaching your children to run from reason or telling them to close their eyes to the great scientific truths they will discover. It just means helping them understand that the tapestry of this life is a marvelous and unified whole of which we are each a blessed and a meaningful part. And that the only way to appreciate the whole of the truth of that tapestry is to embrace the simple notion that faith is the rational belief that there is more to life than reason. Do this, and you'll help them find their way home. Can you do it? Of course you can. All of you have a little bearcat in you. All of you have been to a place with people who believe in searching for poetry and fighting for justice and who have never abandoned their search for God. You have been with a faculty who has stitched together for you that marvelous tapestry of life, a faculty who wanted you to explore the outer boundaries of what could be known, to touch the places your parents never knew, but also to know the secrets of finding your way home. A faculty who is honored to say that they are a part of your life. You have been in a place founded by a remarkable order of priests and brothers, men who built this place many years ago and who continue to build it and provide for your material needs as best they can. But they would tell you that this place was not built for material accomplishments. It was built as an outpost on the journey to God. As their founder, St. Benedict, wrote in his rule, the monastic community is built as a school for the Lord's service, a place where people can learn not to fear and run away from the road to salvation, although that road is bound to be narrow at the outset, a place where all can have faith, that if we run the path of God's commandments, our hearts will be overflowing with the inexpressible delight of love. You've been to a place, in other words, that knows the meaning of home. And now it's time for you to graduate from that place. It's time for you to ready yourself for the great work of helping your children find their way home. And it's time for me to go do something famous, so you won't be embarrassed at your next reunion. May God bless us both in our endeavors.